Go.
Good morning. Wherever you're sitting, you are in the right place. And however you are this morning, you are just the way you are. Today, we have a phenomenal conversation inside of this question. What can you offer the disability community and how? And you might be thinking to yourself that you actually have something to offer. Yes, you do. And in this conversation, I'm predicting that you'll discover that the world we don't know may have more to offer us than we have to offer them. Just something to consider. And I have a quote for you from Francis of Assisi, who says, "Start by doing what's necessary, then do what's possible, and suddenly you're doing the impossible." This is what today is all about. I'm excited today because I'm welcoming back to the Daily Huddle Mr. Kurt Roskopf, and he's probably going to say, "Why are you putting Mr. in front of my name?" But I want to tell you about Kurt. Kurt advocates for people with disabilities, utilizing technology and relationships to make relevant connections locally and across the globe. He serves as Ambassador of Project Diehard. He'll tell you a little bit about that. And the renamed Adaptive Division of the Wisconsin Waterski Federation. He currently co-hosts weekly podcasts, including World of Ability and Compassionate Citizens, beginning in 2016 with AbilityMKE Now, live on Riverwest Radio out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. His deep dive into the world of advocacy began with water skiing for more than 30 years ago. His leadership has included several local nonprofit board positions and serving for 2 years as vice chair of the Wisconsin Governor's Committee for People with Disabilities. I bring to you today, my friend, filled with love, filled with a passion for creating a place where it works for everyone. Your dear friend, my friend, Kurt Roskopf. Good morning, Kurt.
Good morning, Sorrel. Thank you for having me. This is going to be an exciting part of an hour here. This will be good.
Yeah, why not? We were chatting about this, Kurt, and you mentioned something that really struck me. You said, when we speak about what others can offer the disability community, people tend to think as if we are, like I am someone, quote unquote, able. And I'm the one who knows what to offer and have something to offer to the disability community. And I think you have a notion that maybe turns that perspective on its ear. Tell me a little bit about that, Kurt.
Well, you mentioned in introducing me that I serve on boards and so forth. My wife Sue is on here. The story is a family story of the last decade. My daughter is 14 years old, soon to be 15 on the 6th of the next month. And, so for the entirety of her life, we've been kind of plunged into this dynamic, and part of it is through the water skiing story you shared. Our water ski club, for 36 going on 37 years has been partnered with Adaptive Community Approach Program. And I give them, just tremendous credit, for the influence and with self-advocacy and disability advocacy in my life and the effect they have had on my family and me. And, part of what they achieved is they have programs for their members, being adults with disabilities. They have a routine and they do all the logistics with their community guides and so forth to go out into our local area and do volunteer work. So that's part of what this group is a group of volunteers being adults with disabilities. And, it's their mission and how they help people make, their print in the community. Their logo includes, like the thumbprint, imprint, type of deal, to touch the community. And they've touched, me and my soul and my family, and really part of the fabric of how we define ourselves through their success. We've received the success of adaptive community approach programs. So that was just a huge paradigm shift for me. Because prior to diving into this disability service organization, that was not my mindset. To me, everybody around me in my life, in my personal journey, it was kind of like you were speaking to. It was kind of like Kurt Roskopf, go out there and serve and, build up who you are. And, people out there need you, so there is this stigma that I had to, and I still work with, because when you're born into this situation and then all of these childhood influences, get ingrained in you, it just really awoke in me that, I had a chance to redial my mindset and to make this paradigm shift of my own, this transformation, this transformative process to say, let's wash away that predisposed notion where I legit was stigmatizing people with disabilities, and let's reimagine our relationship with all of those people where statistically it's 1 in 4 people. So it's not a little thing. It's not an occasional. It's a pretty much all the time thing. We talked last time when I was on a few months ago. We talked about how, kind of how this, looks in our life, and, this opportunity to, like one thing we speak to is a friend of ours says, hey, look at my ability, not my disability. So it's through people like this, being people with disabilities, that I say now today, kind of my redefining moment is to say, you know what? People with disabilities are masters of ability.
Now
So that
you say that a lot, and I love
yeah.
that context, that people with disabilities are masters of ability. Uh, meaning, not meaning, maybe I'm thinking out loud. Maybe I'm not able. I was born the way I was born, and given that I'm a human being, my body's able to do what it's able to do because I was born that way. And then there are others who are born with different kinds of abilities. And then there are those who are, as you were saying earlier, who are thrust into it and were one way one day and another way the next. So in the context of all of that, Kurt, what can we offer really? Is there anything we can offer? And if so, how can you assist others in making this paradigm shift that you made?
Yeah, it's just exchanging the notion of, again, if we're someone with a disability, we can say they people that don't have a disability, don't relate to someone being in that position, might say to themselves, what I do every day can help them. So like, say I talk about the water ski, experience that, people in my club made this all happen. And I just show up as a ski bum, saying, hey, I got a strong back and a weak mind. How can I help? Just tell me what to do and I'm yours, type of thing. But then when we experience this together with them and we build that relationship, so I think that's what this is about. This is a particular application of our capacity to be opened up and to have a relationship, because that's what this awakening was for me, is to say I didn't give the capacity that I could have because of my preconceived notion, like stinking thinking, that I just kind of like maybe had these moments with people with disabilities, but then when that was done, it legit was like I was done with them. I didn't perceive that they had this constancy day in and day out. Last time I was on here having this type of a conversation with you, is like, what have you done? What are you doing today? What will you do today? And then I'm out there in the business community saying, with a professional with a disability, because that's my check-in, because that's what I had to rewire to picture that when we go see a doctor, a lawyer, an attorney, we're with like the governor of a state. Are we celebrating how our country has had presidents with disabilities? Are we keeping that mindful? The advocates keep pointing out all these celebrities that have had a disability. The movie industry has been making a lot of strides to have actors with disabilities, not able-bodied people acting like they got a physical disability, an actual person that has that physical disability being the actor. Our society needs to rewire its leadership and its process and procedures and its appetite to involve people with disabilities, whether it's in our faith communities, whether it's in our service communities like our Lions, Kiwanis, Optimist, Rotary Club, whatever your favorite nonprofit is. Ask, when they do volunteer recruiting, are they legit recruiting people with disabilities no matter what their mission is? Is that happening? When we're talking about firefighting or EMS or all that stuff, there's all this stuff where we're not picturing that it's a professional or volunteer or person serving. Or like at our libraries, when we're talking about education in rooms in a library, is it someone with a disability being that community expert or being that community with knowledge to share? Is it a person with a disability? I was a part of, as vice chair of the Wisconsin Council on Physical Disabilities. When I showed up and participated in the council, they already had a project of emergency preparedness. And sitting there at the council, they taught me how, if you're a person who's deaf or hard of hearing, now mind you, with my wife and we had experience as EMTs, pre-hospital care. And I never even thought of this, that if somebody's deaf or hard of hearing, how scary is that when the panic is on and you're trying to reassure, what do? Even as the National Registry of EMTs, these doctors of orthopedics are teaching us, verbalize, verbalize, verbalize. Well, if you make it audible and you got people that don't have, that hearing function, what did you just do? You panicked them because everybody's getting instruction and I'm not. So when you keep making yourself available to the disability community, which is what I did 10 years ago, because I had an ulterior motive. I love the sport of water skiing, and my notion with my wife, Sue, and our daughter, we said, why don't we get a part of welcoming and opening the floodgates for people with disabilities to participate in our sport? And I needed to learn, how is this going to work? The most magnificent experience to realize how I was growing as a water skier in this was when I was working with the deaf blind community. To me, that was one of the most magical experiences in my life, to see how these tactical hand interpreters, they talk with their hands, and the touch, where they were touching, I don't know exactly, I never learned like how it all works, but that's how they communicated. So I had something to communicate. I relied on the interpreters, and these students, this was a youth community that came out and they trusted us. That was magnificent. And the way functionally we went out there, and students that had, loss of hearing or they had visual impairment, they had both, so the sight was not, completely functional. The hearing was not completely functional. They had hearing and sight together, was not available. So we relied on the interpreters, and then the elation that they had and how they worked together to share that experience, and how we even had a government entity come out that was able to journalize this. And the way that all happened with these water skiers, the impact that all had on us was just absolutely marvelous. So that kind of really
Oh,
got me functionally thinking how we need to open up, because they had to teach us how this was going to happen. It wasn't like we were all set. They were instructing us. We learned.
I'd love to hear a little bit about how your work with people with disabilities has personally impacted you. You know, I get the sense of how active you are, everything you do, but for you, Kurt, in your own life, in your family, how would you characterize the transformation that you personally have experienced from having done this work and created everything you've created?
Yeah. Well, for me personally, it's like, even being in this program, the Daily Huddle, it's kind of an amazing position to be in, because it really gets me conscious of how many other people on the planet. We have 8 billion people alive right now on our planet. And it gets me thinking, how many people are like opening up this type of thing? Like, people are trying to understand what I do. And that's the amazing position that this has thrusted me in, is that I feel I'm actually designing and defining, through help of you and everybody on the Daily Huddle. To me, this is a new field of expertise to drive, so the idea is, like, one thing I'm involved with is media. Like, I love this live streaming that we're doing right now on YouTube and so forth, because I feel this is a message we need to get out there to the masses. And you spoke about the radio show that I do. We actually work with also the Disability channel out of Toronto, Ontario, Canada. See, and I just very freely say that. But again, in the context of our global community, where else on our planet can you find a television station that is devoted to get people with disabilities into the business of producing television? The founder, Jay Stoyan, created the thing because he recognized that the television industry is not really functionally doing this. If you go through all of our big players, like when you watch the Super Bowl, ask yourself, with that big production of the Super Bowl coming up here, in a couple of weeks or a week and a half, how many people with disabilities are involved in that? Think of the economic resources in that. And we're putting aside the role of people with disabilities in the Super Bowl. Now it's there, but it should be 33 times more. See, now I just said that very freely. I came up with that myself. Nobody on planet Earth taught me this. I said before that if you Google how many people on disabilities are on the planet, everybody can do this. It'll tell you about 1 billion. Well, through the awareness I have, I know that our planet's capacity to harness the situation is very limited. We're only 3% of the way there of where we need to go. So to me, it created a legacy project for me. And you know what? In our country, with our ADA networks, we have something called the ADA Legacy Project. So we can think back to the 80s when people with physical disabilities climbed the steps of our nation's capital to kind of get the politicians thinking, the congressional leaders thinking, like, hey, look at this. I got to climb up because of these steps, to the Capitol building, because we're not thinking like I deserve to be in there. Or they shackled themselves to buses or got in the way of buses driving away because, hey, really? You're going to drive away without me? Like, what is this business? And then there's this expression in life. What is it going to take? An act of Congress?
I just heard something because I'm sitting here listening and creating for myself the space to shift and transform as well. It's like, you know what? Inside of this question, what can I offer the disability community and how? The answer that's coming up for me now is I can offer my listening. I can deliberately go in and say, show me how. Because I can think, I'm smart, other people are smart. I can think that I know what to do to make the space, the world, a better place for people with disabilities. And right now I'm discovering, no, I don't. I can only do from their coaching, from their requests. They are the masters of ability, not me. And that's the message I'm hearing.
Exactly. When I got into this volunteerism and figuring out my role and so forth, and you attend events, you readily come to this establishment in our country and around the world, where they had to rewire the community to think in terms of self-determination.
Mm-hmm.
So you go back and not too long ago in decades where, the leadership, like I said, congressional leaders and so forth, it wasn't that long ago that we as a population on the planet were thinking, we that don't have a disability, we understand we got to do something for people with disabilities out there. And then we just run the ideas. We run the script. We run the show. It's our plan. But then people with disabilities are like, who are all of you? Like, I live with the
What do you
disability
know
every day.
about the
Like,
way I
why am I
live?
not at the table? It's kind of saying like how this works, and that spoke to me,
Yeah.
so again, it's like, this idea that we feel great in what we can do. It's rewarding what we might be able to do to help and make that impact. But even grander, it's like tenfold. It's like that whole thing, what goes around comes around, and paying it forward and how it comes back to us greatly, in magnitudes. That's the effect. Like you've asked about the effect in my life. It's been a tremendous benefit. And that's not the way I've always thought about it. In a business networking group, we were on Zoom, we were talking to some of these topics, and a professional out of Scotland said, now this was wild, right in a business group conversation, people with disabilities are viewed as a liability. And I do say in the business network, so I love that this is kind of a business centric narrative here, because the business element is where we need that grandest shift, because this is where businesses are money making machines, right? And so this is the biggest challenge. Can we rewire our brain that people with disabilities give us the greatest chance to crank out more money? The profiteering is the greatest when involving people with disabilities. Because if we don't, it's like going out there fishing and, imagine managing a fishing fleet. And then you go onto your ships and you find out all your ships have like a big hole out of it, where like 1 in 4 of your fish you're cranking up, to catch the fish is like flopping out of the net because you're not going after 1 out of 4 fish. You're going to fix that net, right? To when you're going out there and using your resources to bring in fish for the catch of the day, you want a full net, right? Same thing in business, where the business people of the world, 3 out of 4 business people aren't wired this way. I was actually in a meeting talking to somebody about this, and the response the gentleman gave me is, Kurt, my business isn't a charity. So we're not thinking in terms of, as entrepreneurs, in what is established with big companies like Microsoft and Google and all this. There's corporate social responsibility. Like with Walmart, you can write, to grants and everything because there's this responsibility corporations have. But when we're entrepreneurs, a solopreneur, it's like, how do we unite? With one of our business networking groups, I created an ability program with a business
Kurt,
community.
hang on 1 second. Let's hear from the people who are here,
Yeah.
because you've triggered a lot of thinking and you've triggered a lot of questions. Let's hear from them and see. Dr. Davis, please.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for this interesting discussion. And I wanted to comment on, first of all, hi, I'm Joy, Dr. Joy. And I wanted to comment on something you just said, Kurt, related to some people in business thought that those with disabilities are a liability in Sweden. Probably there are some individuals in the US who still think that as well. And one thing I wanted to bring out is how uh, there also are invisible disabilities as well, you know? And one thing that I've discovered is I've noticed how the idea of disability studies has become more popular People are getting degrees in it. People are trying their best to be more open-minded. And with that in mind, a couple of months ago, I decided to be more open and transparent with my students for the first time in my life. And I openly shared in a classroom that I have an invisible disability. I've never done that before because I work in a space kind of like what you said. If you have a disability, you must not be as smart, you must not be as accomplished. Why are you here? We're only about being the best, the best. And I realized that when I opened up to my students and shared with them that I grew up and I still have an invisible disability, that the floodgates opened and the students were sharing their experiences with having an invisible disability or a disability or a loved one. And I think it created a more loving, inclusive space in that classroom where people were honest with each other, were kind, where students who, if they had a disability and they had to do a presentation, um, and they messed up, they would say, "Oh, guys, I'm so sorry." And the whole class would just surround them with love and be like, "Oh, it's okay, just keep going. So it was a beautiful thing. But I think on my end, it took courage of me being a leader, saying, you know what, enough is enough. I'm middle aged, I'm accomplished. Who cares if I have an invisible disability? Here I am, and I made it. And I think the students, it was very encouraging for them.
Thank you, Dr. Joy. Thank you for leading that way. And thank you for sharing with us now. This is the beginning of a transformed world. And it begins in a very counterintuitive way. Cece, go ahead.
Good morning. Thank you so much, everyone, for the topic. Invisible disability, I really can relate to. I have a neurological disability that I was recently diagnosed with, and it had been there since I was born. And the fact that we're talking about this opens up opportunities for me to move forward. And with what was there already, God allowed me to still move forward in life. And so I'm looking at it as an opportunity to be transparent and overcome any situation because of it. Actually, it's turning out to be a blessing. And I thank you, everyone, for sharing your experience and for having courage to press forward through it all. Because it's actually a benefit to have this issue because we can talk about it to other people and share how we overcome any situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Cece. Thank you. Kurt, the time's almost running out, and we've said a lot. I'd love for you to wrap it all up and say out loud your personal mission and share with us the mission of the organizations you serve.
Okay. Well, first of all, folks, my dream project, you kind of heard a little bit with the water skiing. I've got quite an application of sports. I used to be in the golf business. So I think back to that too. 13 years in the golf business. I had I'm going to call them token experiences because we did do some stuff with having golfers, who are blind or visually impaired and other people with disabilities involved in our business. But again, I look back with that number 33. That number keeps coming back to me. 33 times more. And, so again, I look at the multiple hats we wear in life, that we have this opportunity. Begin on the sports realm. My dream is to see in this world where we have a property on a lake, where we can have the aquatics like scuba diving, swimming, kayaking, water skiing, all that going on the lake. And then on the land side, we have an indoor facility where we can, in an indoor environment, play indoor tennis or, track and, different things that you can do inside on an athletic or recreational side, and then have the surface sports outside to have this great haven for people with disabilities. I've fashioned, Ability Fest, like global Ability Fest, to have events where it's like a resource, sure, for people with disabilities, but then when people that don't have a disability go around and see all of these nonprofits, what agency is doing, what I call ability ministry. A lot of them are out there as disability ministries, but ability ministries, and again, in our service sector, in our educational realm, this is a big political year in our country. I advocate for disability caucuses. Whatever your political group is, ask how are American disabilities involved in 2024 in our political process. What are we hearing from our candidates? Let's demand that as America, folks. Challenge each person saying they're going to serve our country. How are they equipped to serve Americans with disabilities? And then in the business sector, any business project that we're in, let's wire that people with disabilities are wildly at the table and wildly leading the potential of every business project and in every business network, including here at the Daily Huddle. And then what's fun gets done, whatever you do for fun. Let's ask ourselves, how well are we creating that pathway for fun? I say that our culture, custom, genetic memory is perverted with a lot of bias in the pathways of the journey in life. Let's open that up and let's make everything with an unbiased pathway. And you know what? There's intersectionality. So when you do this, you can look at all of your social justice issues, and let's celebrate how we're making this planet better for everyone. And we are playing a role in that legacy. What is our legacy in the future of how we share this planet? Back to you, Cyril.
Thank you, Kurt. Thank you. And so ends today with a call to action for you, for me, to continually answer the question, what can I offer the disability community? And clearly what I can offer and what you can offer is an open space where we are the one asking, how can we create an ability community for all? Thank you, Kurt. It's always amazing to have you on, and the door's always open. So we end the day with our 8 tenets, as we usually do. Go out there and love. And if you think you know how to love, perhaps going out to volunteer and deliberately seeking to serve someone who's differently able, that will teach us how to love. Let's include everyone and let's laugh. Let's have fun, like you say, Kurt.
That's right.
Eat mostly plant-based and stress less. Give of yourself, give of your time. Sleep well, move your body, and last but not least, check your assumptions. You never know what you could discover if you pretend for a moment that you're wrong. This is our show today. We're on every day, Monday through Friday, from 9 a.m. to 9:30. My name is Cyril Ketan. I'm here with Giovanni Gonzalez, wave brother, the co-founder of the Daily Huddle and co-host of Fridays with me. Thank you, everyone. Welcome home and have a fantastic weekend.
Thank you, Kurt. Thank you, family. Have a great
Thank
weekend.
you, everyone.
Thank you.
Excellent job.